Good afternoon, everyone. My name is none of your concern, and today we've got something a bit different because we're doing an unscripted video. I've had a very busy week, and I never got time to write a script for this one. So let me know what you think about your preferences regarding scripted or unscripted content in the comments, but otherwise, let's get into it. Today we've got another one of my signature Dandan variants called Lantron, which is a colorless one. It's built around the cards Lantern of Insight, and Urza's Mine, Urza's Power Plant, and Urza's Tower, the Tron lands. So, Lantern of Insight, each side of this is a modern deck in its own right. So we've combined them here into an 80 card shared deck format because I think they go well together. The Lantern of Insight is a library manipulation card that basically, well, its ability of sacrificing it to cause shuffling isn't great. The important thing is that it informs library manipulation. So odds are someone will play someone at some point because there's a lot of them in the deck, and that will really get things going. On the other side, we have the Tron lands, another deck in Modern that is combined here because library manipulation, in this format, the idea is that you'd use library manipulation effects like Lantern of Insight to either ensure that you can assemble Tron or to stop your opponent from doing the Tron land thing. So let's move on to the deck list now, and I'll explain a bit more about how it works. One thing to keep in mind is only one Lantern has to be in play for both players to see the top card. And if you have duplicates, you can always use it as a one-shot shuffle effect. The list is 10 Lantern of Insight, 8 Codex Shredder, 2 Pyxis of Pandemonium, 2 Ghoul Color Spell, 2 Sensei's Divining Top, 2 Maze Mind Tome, 2 Dark Seal Pendant, 2 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Expedition Map, 2 Ink Moth Nexus, 2 Blink Moth Nexus, 2 Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, 2 Gutshot, 2 Noxus Revival, 2 Staff of Domination, 6 Urza's Tower, 6 Urza's Mine, 6 Urza's Power Plant, 2 Urza's Cave, 2 Inventor's Fair, 2 Wasteland, 2 Dust Bowl, 2 Rishadenport, 2 Vesuva, 2 Echoing Deep, 2 Thespian Stage, 2 Zulfirin Void. Alright, so that's the list. Let us get into a closer examination of each card, where I'll tell you why I included it and what you can do to use it best in this format. First is Codex Shredder. This is obviously one of the two most notable cards in the Modern Lantern control deck. It has two abilities. One is the library manipulation ability. That's the one you'll use most often. So if the top card of the deck is unfavorable to you, either in that your opponent's about to draw it and you don't want them to, or you're about to draw it and you don't want to, you can mill it and reset the top card. Secondly, it's also a source of recursion. There are a few other sources of mill here in addition to the ability to recur cards that it milled. So that ability is a thing that I expect to come up, but the main thing is the first ability. Alright, next up we have Pyxis of Pandemonium, which is a card that we'll have to talk about for the reason that it has no rulings about how it works in a shared deck 80 card format officially from Wizards of the Coast, for the reason that there are no officially sanctioned 80 card shared deck formats. So the confusion occurs with the first ability, which says each player exiles the top card of his or her library face down. When you're drawing from the same deck, you need it will matter, since the owner of the cards matter for the second ability, who exiles first, and there is no ruling for that. So I think that my ruling is as good as anyone's, and I say that the person who activates it exiles the first card, and the next person exiles the card under it. Um, so obviously it's a form of library manipulation that gets rid of cards two at a time from the top of the library. And furthermore, there's an Emrakul or two in this deck, which you may have noticed. So if you can set it up so that the top card's an Emrakul, and then activate this, you will have an Emrakul in play and probably win. So let me know in the comments if you ever managed to do that, because that's one of the reasons I put it in here. Colourless Bell is a much simpler card. It also has no official ruling regarding who mills first, so I say you mill first, but it won't matter in this deck list at least, because the owner of cards as they're being put into the graveyard doesn't matter. But it synergizes with Codex Shredder and other sources of recursion, and it's another library manipulation card to reset any unfavorable top decks. Keep in mind, like Pixis, it hits two cards at once since it's each player. Next we got to Sensei's Divining Top, possibly the most controversial card in this list. It's really, really, really good in any shared deck format. I think that I would not include it in any other of my Dandan variants because it's simply too much more powerful than the other cards. However, I think the plethora of other cheap sources of reusable library manipulation just mean that this will be one of the better ones, probably the best one, but it won't be categorically oppressive in the way that the others are. That it would be in other formats. And it does cost mana to use its ability, which is one thing balancing it, since the other three, Codex Shredder, Pixis, and Ghoul Color Spell, just tap. So that could also end up hurting it. The last thing that I want to mention that balances it is that it'll be very, very rarely optimal to use the second ability ever, because if they manage to draw it before you do, they get the top, which is not something you want to happen. So the neutering of the second ability combined with the other sources of library manipulation mean that I think this will be balanced in this format, but we may need further testing to see if that is the case. Next up we have Maze Mind Tome. It can scry. Scrying is the same as Fate Sealing in a shared deck format. And it can also draw you cards, so it's a mana sink for all the Tron lands that you've assembled. So that's very nice. Against life, that probably won't matter unless your opponent is trying to kill you with Blink Moth Nexuses, but that won't usually be how most games end, I expect. Darkseal Pendant is the last of these library manipulating artifacts that we have in this section. It's the probably the weakest. Its abilities are overcosted, but it is indestructible. So once you get it in play, you will have it forever. And it's just one mana, and tap it to scry one, but it is overcosted compared to the others, which I think balances its indestructibility. And again, scrying is as good as Fate Sealing. Ratchet Bomb is the card that you can use to clean up all those other artifacts except for Darkseal Pendant. Most of them cost one, so if you get one counter on this and use it, it'll clean up if you happen to be losing the Lantron War. And if you are very patient, you can put 15 counters on it and kill your opponent's Emrakul. Let me know if you ever do that. Moving on. Expedition Map. This is a staple of modern Tron decks. The purpose here is to get your Tron lands but you can also get many of the other utility lands in this format. There's more to it than just the Urza lands. Most often it will be used to complete your set of Urza lands, but keep in mind that there will be a lot of times when you want other stuff, and there are a lot of lands. Deck is more than 50% lands with 42 of them, so I would keep an eye on this card. It's going to be one of the most useful and flexible cards in the format. Alright, first land we have here is Inkmoth Nexus. This is one of the main win conditions, and it's a 1/1 infect, so if you hit your opponent with it 10 times, they die. It adds a kind of inevitability to the format so that your opponent doesn't have infinite time to turtle around, which is important, and neither do you if they have one, of course. Next up, we have Blinkmoth Nexus. This one you won't often attack with, but it can be used to block and trade with an opponent's Inkmoth Nexus, or to make your Inkmoth Nexus bigger so that you can cut the amount of time that your opponent has to live before succumbing to poison in half, which is also a very, very valid way to win. Last win condition here is Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn. It's really big, it's a mana sink. You will need a lot of Tron lands to cast it, but I expect that as long as you're able to put up some kind of defense against the Inkmoths and Blinkmoths, you have a pretty good chance of getting to it, because the game will probably be pretty long. It's an iconic card. You can cheat it into play with Pixis, which is nice, but if you cast it, you usually win. The other thing I want to talk about here is that it reshuffles when it's milled by the Pixis, or not the Pixis, when it's milled by the Codex Shredder or the Ghoul Collar spell, which makes it so that you have to win by attacking. I don't enjoy Dandan games where people are just playing chicken trying to make their opponent draw the last card, and having a card like Emrakul that reshuffles and makes that much more difficult to do leads to much more proactive gameplay that disincentivizes doing nothing forever, which I find a lot more interesting. And it's just a great classic ramp payoff. Perfect for this kind of really slow, symmetrical Urza format. Gut Shot. Love this card. It's in my cube. It should be in yours, and it's in this deck. Should be in other Dandan variants as well, possibly. Mainly, its main purpose is to kill Blinkmoths. But if you've hit your opponent 19 times with the Blinkmoth Nexus, and you just need that little extra push, you can do that as well. Probably won't be able to kill an Emrakul with this, I'm sorry to say. Noxus Revival, another free spell that I love for cubes and for Dandan variants. This one is a source of recursion for all the cards you've milled with your Codex Shredders or Ghoul Collar spells, or that have been destroyed otherwise, and it's library manipulation. So you can put the card on top, and then you can either have them draw it if it's bad, or you can draw it if it's good. Next we have Staff of Domination. This card is the ultimate mana sink. It's unlimited. It's very costly to use, so to get best use from it, you will usually need to have assembled your Tron and then some, but once you do, there's a lot you can do. Most often you'll be drawing cards with it, but you can also use it to tap attackers like Inkmoth Nexus or Emrakul when need be, or if your opponent has one and they're tapping your attackers, you can use this to untap them and kill them anyway, so that's nice. Another land we have is Urza's Cave. This is the land with the ability of Expedition Map, a great card for assembling your Urza lands and getting your ramp going. Of course, like Expedition Map, it can get anything. So there are a lot of other cards. If you're trying to kill them with Ink Moths and Blink Moths, it can do that as well. Inventor's Fair is a good card. It can gain you life to keep, if your opponent is trying to hit you 20 times with the Blink Moth Nexus, this can stop that. But more importantly, it has an ability where you pay 4 and sacrifice it to get an artifact card from the deck to your hand. This is good because most of the non-land cards are artifacts, so it shouldn't be too hard to activate this. The difficult thing is paying for and sacrificing a land is a pretty big cost, but there are some very good things you can get. So if you need Sensei's Divine Top or Codex Shredder or Ratchet Bomb, you can just get what you need with this if you have the mana to spare. And again, these cards are all tutorable with your Expedition Maps and Urza's Caves. So don't be afraid to get them if you are already set on Tron. Wasteland. This is pretty simple. Use this to destroy your opponent's utility lands or to keep them from assembling the Urza lands. I do want to talk about my choice to omit Crucible of Worlds. It isn't for the reason that you think. I don't have any problem with locking people out of the game with Wasteland and Crucible of Worlds. I love doing that. But my problem is that if they get a Crucible, it'll be too easy to reassemble Tron once it's been disrupted, and it'll basically negate Wasteland and cards like it and make you immune to any kind of land destruction to stop you from assembling Tron, which just seems too powerful to me. So that's why I don't have Crucible, but if you think that you're okay with that, then feel free to include it. But otherwise, yes, Wasteland, be a pillar of the format. Very often you'll be getting this with your Expedition Map instead of a Tron land because it's more important to keep them off Tron in certain situations. Dust Bowl looks like a reusable Wasteland, very underrated card in a lot of formats, and I think this format's a great home for it. It costs more, but it can keep your opponent off Tron for good as long as you're willing to keep paying the mana. Rishadenport. I love this card so much. My favorite of these kinds of land disruption lands. It doesn't destroy Tron, so it won't make the lands lose the ability, but you can cut off a bit of mana by tapping the tower if they have Tron, so that they only get 4 instead of 7, which is nice. You can use it to stop Ink Moths and Blink Moths from attacking. And if you're ahead on mana, you can use it to compound your mana advantage by trading your mana for their mana, essentially. So a lot of uses for this card, don't sleep on it. Vesuva. This is a classic card in Legacy Cloudpost decks. It can copy any land in play, so a thing to keep in mind is normally in Constructed it doesn't come up that you want to copy your opponent's lands with this because they're usually playing a different deck and their lands aren't as good as yours for your deck. But since everyone's playing the same deck here, if they have the Tron land that you need to assemble Tron, don't be afraid to copy that. Or if you already have Tron, you can get another Urza's Tower, or if you want to hit your opponent with more Ink Moths, you can get another one of those. There's a lot to do here. Next up, we have Echoing Deeps. This is similar to Vesuva, but I prefer to think of it more as a source of land recursion rather than a land copying effect in the way that Vesuva and, as you'll soon see, Thespian Stage are. The reason I'm including it is because I think it's a more balanced version of this effect than Crucible of Worlds, since it can only be done once. But if they mess up your Tron or if they kill your Blink Moths, you can use this to get them back by playing it as a copy of them Also, if you kill their ink moth, you can use this to copy it, and then you have it. So that's cool. Thespian Stage is similar to Vesuva, but worse in most ways since it costs mana to use, but it does have a few things. The main one is that it's reusable, so sometimes situations will come up where the land you wanted to copy before is no longer the one you want to copy now. So you had better be ready to use this to change it when you need to, but of course it will cost you 2 mana, which will usually be more relevant than the ability to change your mind. Zephyrin Void is the last card in this deck, and boy is it a nice one. It's perfectly suited for this format. Scrying is library manipulations, just like Fate Sealing, as I've been saying, in any shared deck format. And this is an untapped, colorless land that does that. It's simple and elegant and well suited for the format. Thank you for listening to my presentation on the topic of Lantron, the latest Dandan variant. I hope you liked it. I apologize for not making time to write a script this week. I will try to do that next week. I just had an unusually busy week. But if you have any more ideas for cards that could be included in this deck that I didn't talk about here, or if you disagree with any of my inclusions, or if you want another idea that you have for a Dandan variant to be discussed by me on this channel, don't hesitate to leave a comment, and also do the other things that you can do on YouTube. Thank you.